The simple fact you were born, you are already worthy. You already deserve a delicious life. You, by definition, are a miracle. That's a whole other episode. I've been really feeling about that miracle too. So when we're thinking about worthiness as something external to us, we are literally cutting off the path to ease. Because there is no ease, zero ease. In fact, negative ease. You will create hardship and stress and struggle and dissonance for yourself when you are trying to fulfill someone else's version of the right way of living, the right way of loving, the right way of building a business, the right way of anything. And so if your capacity for ease has these conditions, life will feel easy, good, loving, inflow, abundant. Welcome to Wild and Finally Fucking Free, the show for disruptors, rebels, and revolutionaries who know they're here to change the damn world. I'm Kylie Patchett, your voice and visibility catalyst, and here we dive into unapologetic truth, magnetic messaging, and visibility that actually feels good in your body, your bones, and your business. We share the stories of the out-of-the-box, neuro-sparkly, creative, witchy wild ones rewriting how we live, love, learn, and lead. This isn't about being louder. It's about being rooted, resonant, and regulated so you can be real, raw, and ready to roar. If you're done contorting yourself to fit the mold and you're ready to own your voice, your power, and your place in the revolution, welcome home. Let's dive in. Hello there, Spunks. Welcome to the podcast again. This episode is all about ease in marketing, ease in business, ease in life, ease in relationships. Ease because you are surrendering to you, your magnificence, your design, your energetics, your flow, your values, your preference. Now, this is a conversation that comes up a lot in my client circles because so often, I was laughing with my husband the other day. I just said, you know what? I think I could capture my entire concept of coaching with the beautiful humans that I work with in terms of one sentence. If it doesn't feel good for you, don't do it. Ignore the rules. What actually feels the most easeful for you, the most in resonance for you, the most natural way of sharing your work in the world. So I am often having conversations, like perfect example in our Raw Revolution group. One of our new members the other day was saying, you know, I just can't force myself into doing, it wasn't lives, it was reels. I can't force myself into doing reels. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And she's like, well, you know, I know that we should be doing reels, but it just doesn't really work for me. And I've got a lot of resistance around it. And I'm always going to ask for more information, right? Because this can be one of two things. It can be resistance where there's a part coming out to play and trying to like screw with your ability to share your work in the world because there's a part of you that's scared to be seen. That is a very real thing. But the only person who knows what feels 100% good in your body from your self energy, from your authentic wild woman self, is you. So I have absolutely gone through periods in my business where, like, for instance, when I was in the promo period for Scene last year, I had made a commitment to myself to lean into something that really scared me, which was doing lives. And I don't know why it scared me. Like, I don't know, like I don't know. My dad used to say, she can talk with a mouthful of marbles underwater. And that is true. In fact, I got a lot of, not so much from my dad, but a lot of like negative press about my talkativity. Is that a word? Talkativity? It is now. From my schooling, from my other parent, like it was all about don't be so loud, don't be so enthusiastic, don't be so passionate, whatever. Joke's on them, right? Because my entire business is built on not only my ability to voice my truth, heal those parts of me that are, you know, still scared to be safe, scared to be safe. Now that is actually the topic of this conversation. So that's a Freudian slip. But there's still parts of me that will show up and not feel comfortable with leaning in So there's two different things, right? When I gave myself that commitment, I had a sense from my authentic self energy, from my wild woman, that the next step in my evolution was to lean into doing lives because it felt like a real barrier to me just showing up in my natural state, right? And so I committed to that, and I committed to dancing with the resistance. It's like a dance, dancing to the resistance with the resistance and learning ways that I could calm the parts of me down that are really afraid. I was using tapping a lot. I was using hypnotherapy a lot. I was doing an abundance meditation every night. Like I was doing all the things, right? That is one thing. But there is also equally ways in which you are trying to market that are not the way that you are designed to. And I'm saying design, I'm not speaking specifically human design, although that is definitely, part of the picture here. But for instance, this conversation, like, tell me more. Well, I know we should be doing reels. And I'm like, okay, first of all, anytime you're shooting, take a step back and go, who says by whose rules? Now, the fact is, social media is a great way of leading people into your ecosystem if it feels good for you. It is not a very longevity spiced way. It is actually a really shitty longevity way. So unless you are willing to be, online, a lot, batch creating content or whatever, it might not be the visibility strategy for you. Creating reels is only one way of showing up on social media. So this is why I am pathologically opposed to any one-size-fits-all marketing. Even those people out there that are like, oh, you're a one line, so therefore you should market like this in human design. I'm like, that is way too simple. And you have to have the capacity in your business to get into your authentic self, your wild woman, connect to the soul of your business, and then be like, what is the way that I'm called to share this message? Now, this podcast and its evolution is a perfect example of this. So when I first started the podcast, there was not really any strategy behind it. I just knew that I loved interviewing people. I love people's stories. I find verbal communication easy, one of the easiest. And so it was kind of like a no-brainer. I had no strategy. This is the sixth iteration of the podcast, 6 seasons, 6 identities. At one stage, I was focusing on midlife metamorphosis and went into, very specific midlife and menopause. I've always been sharing other people's stories. And this season, when I actually had my winter sabbatical this year, what the wild woman inside of me said very clearly was, stop only sharing other people's stories. Yes, you have a genius around that. You love interviewing. It is enjoyable for me. But also the way that I'd structured it in my business, it was taking a lot of time. I was spending an hour and a half at least for each podcast guest because I was doing quite long episodes. And when you add that up across, the next 6 months, that's a lot of time. And I knew that I really wanted to free up my calendar. That was very clear. And so I sat with the wild woman. So often, I don't just expect that the wild woman's going to be on call because often there's parts of us, coming out to play. So I've got, my general morning routine, although I'm very out of whack at the moment. So responsibilities to self, go to the gym tomorrow morning. But my routine that works the best for me is get out of bed, move my body, then meditate, because I cannot meditate if I haven't moved first. My monkey mind is like, but once I actually get rid of some of the physical energy, then I can drop in. And then I sat in meditation. I did my own Soul of Your Business meditation, which I can actually share here. Actually, no, the one that I will share with you is Golden, which is actually introducing you to the 3 parts of who is driving the business bus. So the soul of your business, the wild woman, and also this inner child that sometimes does get scared about all this visibility stuff, right? So I'll put that in the show notes. So I'd moved my body, I'd done this meditation, and I was like, right, wild woman, we need to have a conversation. The feeling of doing the podcast and marketing in the way that I have been, and I had been doing a lot of quite detailed carousels on Instagram and also the podcast in the form of just interviewing other people. And it was feeling heavy and it was feeling like something I was telling myself I should do. So again, the should turns up, right? And I'm like, hang on a minute. I teach this stuff. If I'm saying should, there's something that I need to dig underneath. So I started digging, and the wild woman was very clear that the having to kind of fit into a specific way of marketing that used to work in my business and used to feel good and now no longer feels good was draining what I would say is your most resonance with your soulmate clients. And that is the natural magnetism that happens when you are sharing, marketing, speaking about your work in a way that is natural to you. Now, for that client that I was talking about, her example was she is actually not a short form content lover. She doesn't eat information and education that way. And she also is, like me, she's a lover of depth, right? So a reel is a 90-second capture of something. So for her brain, having to have these big concepts around, and she works in the relationship coaching and kind of guide mentoring end of things, and has a lot of depth of understanding about things like attachment theory and IFS. And, they're things that she was really struggling with breaking down into these 90-second snacks. And I was like, so who says you have to? And she's like, well, all the marketing people. And I'm like, all the marketing people are trying to sell you a solution that says you need to be doing reels. So their opinion actually doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to me. So what do you actually want to do? And she's like, well, I really want to do a podcast where I can get into these juicy, in-depth conversations. And I'm like, great, do that. And Shane and I, my husband and I, were having a bit of a giggle going like, I'm honestly just one big walking permission slip, but you already know what you are really naturally good at. And if you don't, then there needs to be some digging under your not in your self energy. Like there is definitely not, if you're not leading from your full authentic self, if you cannot see your genius and don't know what you're naturally good at. You are acting from layers of learned limitation and conditioning that say, I'm not good enough the way that I am. And so that's where I would start. Get unapologetic, the bot. Start cracking that stuff up. Start, leaning towards your liberation, not your limitations. Anyway, so for me, what I actually sat with the wild woman with, and similar to this client, I was like, what feels good? And she's like, honestly, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, great, do that. Guess what? That unlocks ease. That unlocks, I've got thousands of ideas for podcasts and I'm just going to get, and she got a great, traveling microphone that's a decent quality because she travels a lot across the world. And she's like, I just carry that everywhere. And now when I have a good idea, then I'm just going to pull it out and start recording. And I'm like, that is brilliant because that is harnessing ease and it's harnessing your own energetics. Now, the thing that makes you most magnetic is just being yourself. So if she was to continue down the track of I have to do reels and she's going to push herself, she's going to push through resistance, she's going to take a lot of time to get to do it because there's going to be parts going, no, 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 no. And that is also because it's just not aligned to what she's doing, right? It's not just about the fear coming to the surface. And then she might do them and they will fall flat because there is no resonance in any woman trying to be something that she isn't. Similarly, when I sat with my wild woman, I was like, I actually don't want to be interviewing people and having big, long episodes. I feel really called to pull some of the things that are like my own aha moments, a bit of behind the scenes, but also sharing things like this, like client stories, because at the moment that feels the most easy and the most helpful for you guys who are the listeners. Now, sometimes that means that the people that were resonating with you because you were doing it a particular way then fall away, but that's okay, right? We are all evolving. You know yourself, someone that you looked up to as this amazing guide, like even 6 months ago, may or may not feel like that now. And that's just because your understanding and lived experience continues to evolve. So my question to you is, how easy are you willing to allow your marketing and your work to get? How easy? Now, your answer to that, and it's really interesting when I say to a client, what if I said to you it gets to be easy? And you will find there's a lot of conditioned beliefs, like you have to work hard to make money, you have to hustle, I have to be like X, Y, Z, I have to be more this to be more visible, I have to be not this to be more visible, like all the things that we played with in Raw Live. If you were there, the visibility activation that I just ran. And so just being aware of what is your relationship with ease? Because if you tell me what your relationship with ease is, I will reflect back to you what your relationship with your genius is. So Sometimes what I see is people overcomplicating things because they've got that story of working hard to create money. And that is definitely what I've done historically in my business. Hello, overpreneurs. There is also people that will run protection on themselves by having 58 different ideas. Like this is more of a dreampreneur or a shinepreneur, so the other end of the spectrum, where many ideas, but the complication or the lack of focus that happens is because they can't pick one. And so there is no ease. As much as it might feel good to be in that ideation phase because there's like dopamine and there's like, oh, yeah. And then we go into that mental masturbation of cyclical thinking. And I could do this and then I could do that and then I could do this and then I could do that. But actually, what you're implementing in the real life here, down on earth, nothing's changing. Nothing's moving the needle. So your relationship with ease is actually, it's kind of muddied by your relationship with actually what it's going to cost you to choose. And for those two types, that's a fear of success, a fear of actually being seen and measured as not good enough. So there's a couple of things I want to say about ease. Number one, if you have any relationship with chaos, difficulty, struggling, striving, fighting for in your younger life, whether it's because your family was a particular way, maybe there was money beliefs playing out in the background about, money being hard to come by. Maybe it's kind of like a cultural thing. It's like we are always the underdog. We need to fight. Really noticing in my family, there's a lot of underdog. And like, if I'm watching a sporting thing, like sport is not my thing at all. But if I'm watching a sporting thing and there is a team that's like 56 in the score, like I'm thinking rugby league here, for instance, and then there's a team that's like 6, I will always go for the underdog. I will always go for the underdog. And I think it is a little bit of a cultural thing in Australia, but I've been really, really seeing that there's a pattern in my family of always having to fight for your place in the world, or always having to it's like, skin of your, I'm putting my nails up, but like just like by your fingertips holding on to, maybe it's money, maybe it's love, maybe it's conditioning, connection, any of the good things in life. Like it is a kind of set point in my family where you're always trying to, it's like there's a lack of this and you're trying to hold on to it, right? And so you can imagine that a lot of my work around ease in business has actually come from working on those layers of conditioning. So if you come at all from a background where there is any form of neglect, of trauma, of doing without, of poverty, of scarcity, of lack, then your relationship with ease is actually one of the most beautiful invitations that you could ever have to actually start excavating and working on expanding your capacity to be at ease. This is something that I'm also seeing a lot in the Genius U charts that I'm running at the moment. So there is particular places where we can be conditioned, where we can feel like we are overly responsible, or we have to overwork or hustle, or we've got a lot of these like pressure centers revving us up, but we're not getting anywhere. That's number one. The second thing is, when it comes to worthiness, and I'm using heavy inverted commas if you're listening to this as an audio, our cultural idea of worthiness is having to achieve something, get a piece of paper, get a particular amount of money, have a particular house, drive a particular car, do the things that will make us worthy, in inverted commas, or if you want to use a different word, successful, right? All of that is externally motivated, external stuff, material stuff. And, I've talked about this before on this podcast. Like I was 26. I had worked really hard. I'd spent 10 years in uni after school. I got multiple fucking pieces of paper. If you need one, please have one because I don't use any of them. And My sense of worth was about getting to this place in the world where I felt successful because I had and I'm heavily using inverted commas again, a good job, earning good money, and in a good relationship. So 21, met my husband. 25, got married. 26, I get my dream job as the general manager of a medical company. That dream job was more like a nightmare. And I found myself having this moment in time where I was like, I have done everything that I'm supposed to do to feel like I'm a success. And internally, that was to feel like I am worthy. But I have spent all my time and energy and focus climbing the wrong fucking ladder. And now I find myself at the top of the ladder with the good job, earning good money, with the good relationship. And, happy to say the good relationship continues through my timeline. But everything else about that picture was horrendous. Horrendous. And so when we are focusing our idea of success or worth on some external version of it, we are never, ever going to find ourselves in a life that feels, and, I'll borrow from my very first group program I ever ran years ago, that feels delicious. So if that's part of your story, you're still trying to do success or get the feeling of being worthy once you get to something outside of yourself, I really, really want to invite you to try on for size by virtue of the simple fact you were born. You are already worthy. You already deserve a delicious life. You, by definition, are a miracle. That's a whole other episode. I've been really feeling about that miracle too. So when we're thinking about worthiness as something external to us, we are literally cutting off the path to ease. Because there is no ease, zero ease, in fact, negative ease. You will create hardship and stress and struggle and dissonance for yourself when you are trying to fulfill someone else's version of the right way of living, the right way of loving, the right way of building a business, the right way of anything. And so if your capacity for ease has these conditions, life will feel easy, good, loving, inflow, abundant. If you have a conditional relationship with ease, that is part of the problem. That is part of the problem. So first point, your set point for ease is set in the conditioning parts of your childhood. Second step, if you're looking externally for a sense of worth or any version of success, you are setting yourself up for the opposite of ease. And third, when you feel into what feels easy and it feels too good to be true, I want you to use that as a breadcrumb towards creating the business that feels good from the inside out. So I have to say, I am so much more motivated to create podcast episodes when I have taken off the shackles of the right way of doing things. I have to do it this way because I've always done it and it has to be other people's stories and and just giving myself permission to play and feel good. And I'm also releasing we used to have weeks and weeks and weeks of episodes batched ahead of time. And, that is great for a number of reasons. Like if life's, you don't have any pressure of creating any episodes. But this time, if you look at the publication dates of this podcast, it is not bang, 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 bang on this beautiful, perfect every Tuesday timeline anymore. Because here's the thing, I don't believe that the experience of this podcast for the listeners or for myself depends on it being at a specific schedule. The reason I did that the first time is because there was a part of me that was saying the right way to do a podcast is to be absolutely impeccable with your publication schedule. And now I do not believe that. I do not believe that. So I want you, instead of saying, like when you say, I want to share my work in the world, I'd really love to know, what are you telling yourself you have to do? And if you have resistance or a real feeling of like around it, it is time to get happening with building a relationship with your authentic self, that wild woman inside of you. And again, there's a free link underneath this. I'll share Golden with you. Quick pause, my love. If you've been feeling like you've outgrown some of the boxes you used to fit in, or there's a version of you that is ready to speak more unapologetically, to lead from a whole other, more bold, more beautiful evolution, and to be seen for your unique gifts and genius, you need to get your hands on a Genius You human design reading. And no, this is not a human design reading like you know it through the tropical system with like a rote, surface level generic description. This is actually the way that I do human design through the lens of true sidereal, which is true sky at the time of your birth, human design, and an intuitive coaching audio breakdown that decodes your voice, your visibility, your purpose. It is a massive permission slip. It is a mirror to your magnificence. And it is the perfect gift right now to yourself to enter 2026 with a whole new level of the evolution you're stepping into. The way that I see true sidereal human design is like the next step, the next stage, the next wild woman yes to your evolution. And right now, these are half price, which is $222 US for a 60 plus page report, an hour of intuitive coaching from me in audio reading format, and also the ability to add on an in-person intuitive coaching session to answer any specific questions that you might have as a follow-up. And they are available very, very, very excitingly on my brand new website. Now, it's a complicated URL, so if you're listening to this, go and check the show notes. But where you will find them is offers.kyliepatchett.com/genius. offers.kyliepatchett.com/genius. All right, back to the show. Start building the relationship, because when your brain tries to tell you that there is right ways and that you should do reels, or you should do a perfect podcast, or you should do it this way, or it should be perfectly produced and it should be this and it should be that, I want you to actually have a voice of internal knowing that you can turn into. And I often talk about this in client sessions. Like, imagine, like, we'll always open coaching with some sort of energy or emotional alchemy process. And I'm always saying, imagine you can take your eyeballs looking externally, and let's talk about this from a metaphorical perspective, and roll your eyes to internal. So what you're actually noticing, what you're paying attention to, where your energy and your intention is flowing, is your internal landscape. That is where the ease comes from. Going inside for your own answers. And you know what? Sometimes the wild woman, sometimes the soul of your business and your wild woman are like, girl, you have, I really hate calling grown women girls. What? You need to step the fuck up. So that was the message I got when I had to do the lives, when I was told, the lives are absolutely part of your evolution. And I have to say, for me, doing those lives cracked something in me of, if I am not on the edge of my own expansion that I'm inviting clients into, who am I to even talk about voice and visibility? If I'm not leaning into my own edges, if I'm not walking the edge of learning to have a capacity for holding the discomfort and the elation of doing something that scares you. So when you build a relationship with that wild woman, you have an internal checkpoint. That internal checkpoint can answer small things like, what is the best way to share, I don't know, a special offer you want to put on sale for, I don't know, Black Friday. It's Black Friday season. And it can be as huge as, my current offer suite feels full of hard and struggle and strive. What do we do about it? What do we do about it? I guarantee you already know. You can trust your desires. You can trust the whisper of your internal felt sense. And what I see all the time in business is that people are operating with their eyeballs only on the outside, looking for permission from someone else, looking for the right answers, looking for the magic pill. I guarantee if you start actually building a relationship, rolling those beautiful eyeballs, and you're noticing and relationship building with the truth of who you are, your business will become so much easier for you very quickly. Very, very quickly. So how good, how easy, how in flow are you willing to allow this to get? And I'm not saying this is easy, as in easy, one decision and, oh, my business is like taking off. But I will say to you time and time again that you can spend a lot of time and energy and striving, creating stuff that is not for your highest good and is not for the highest good of the people that you want to serve. And that comes from trying to do it according to other people's rules. It comes from thinking a plug and play, one size fits all is the thing that you need to follow. And that comes from not looking inside of yourself for the answers and only looking outside. Most of you listening to this podcast are people like me that are one foot either side of this midlife transition, right? We have gone through the lived experience of the first 4 or 5 decades of our lives. We know that there's this calling to a next evolution. We know that this wild woman inside of us is getting louder. We know that our tolerance of shit we don't want to do, people we don't want to have relationships with, is getting lower and lower and lower. So if that is you, you are at a wildly exciting time. And, you know, I was talking to a beautiful one-on-one client the other day. I was like, you're in shedding season. Like, she's like, oh my God, everything's changing. I'm feeling really discombobulated. I'm like, this is brilliant news. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about, you crazy lady? I'm like, you're in shedding season. Shedding season is a beautiful thing. And she's in Northern Hemisphere, so, you know, lined up in terms of like autumn being the season as well. Shedding season. You know, if you think about the life cycle that we're going through in perimenopause, it's literally like, I'm taking that through to the next stage. I'm not taking that. I will accept and tolerate this. I will not accept and tolerate that. I will take care of myself in this way. I refuse to abandon myself in all these ways. This is exciting. And you can really harness this rite of passage of stepping into this like wise woman, you know, in life phase as well, and be like, yeah, I'm a bloody leader and I've got something really important to give to the world. And so do all of you. You know, this surrendering to ease and owning your genius is not about arrogance. It's not about saying you're better than anyone else. It's not about, you know, dissing any of the ways you showed up. And that's the other thing that I would say, this ease, this accessing, how good will you allow this to get? It actually requires you to change and pivot and respond. And for some people, that is very scary, very scary. And I understand that. And I will also say, whatever scares us, the flip side is freedom. So how good are you allowing it to get? I'm going to share Golden, which is the meditation that I was referring to before. The other thing I should mention is that right at the moment we have Genius U reports for half sale, which is human design through the lens of true sidereal, and specifically around bringing your genius to the world, magnetic marketing, voice and visibility, and not this kind of big eagle eye view of human design. So not looking at it through just the like, oh, you're a generator and this is your profile lines, but the actual specific energetics of the gates that absolutely have an impact on your life purpose, your life trajectory, what you are designed to deliver to the world, how you are designed to say it and share it, and the core desire that your soulmate clients, that this beautiful mirror thing that happens when our core wound, our core invitation to evolve through in our own life, that is actually reflected back in the soulmate clients that you are most in resonance with as well. So there is such depth and nuance that you can learn from your human design chart. I will say, just like I did in a past episode, it should not be used as a set of rules. This is something to filter through your resonance, your felt knowing. And at the moment, I am on a mission to release the genius from disruptors, rebels, and revolutionaries. I'm offering them for half price. It is not a plug and play or tick and flick exercise. These are not generated reports, particularly not AI generated reports. These are me answering your specific questions, and you end up with a 60-page report about your specific individual nuanced energetics, and also about a 60-minute audio, which is some intuitive coaching around it. So if that interests you, I'll put the link in down below, and have a fabulous day. Open up to the concept and the idea that this can be easy. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to strive. You certainly don't have to pretend to be anything but yourself. And the things that are the most easeful and the most aligned and integrity for you are the things that will make you the most magnetic, because what actually magnetizes people, particularly in the middle of this shiny social media time that we're in, is real people who don't require to be over-edited, who don't turn up in perfectly put together gear. Like, you couldn't get more natural than me just turning a camera on in my office, and I don't know what behind me, probably shit is everywhere. I don't really care. Anyway, have a fantastic day. So much love to you. Open up to good and ease and flow. You deserve it. Your genius deserves to be shared with the world. Thank you for being here. I love you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If this episode lit a fire in your body, in your business, deep down in your bones, please take a moment to drop a rating and review so more rebels just like you can find us. And don't keep this goodness to yourself. Share it with your disruptive, rebel, and revolutionary friends who are ready to roar right alongside of you. Until next time, stay wild, stay unapologetic, and stay fucking free.